a dozen of us who have national ministries to help encourage other pastors as well.
That's right. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed the homily, and maybe they'll see us next year at that prayer service in Washington.
It's always the morning of the March for Life, Capitol Visitor Center. Thanks, friends, for all you do. We do hope to see you there, and also as we travel on the road. Now, Mark, back to you.
Thank you, Father Frank. All right. The battle rages on. You know, some time ago, we talked, this is several years ago, about the things that were being set in place to deal with terrorism and how they could be manipulated and so forth to be used against pro-lifers. And it was a dangerous environment where you're creating all of these agencies that have this kind of loose-knit and ill-defined target. So, and then all of a sudden, right after they start doing this thing, you start having all these lefties like Chuck Schumer from New York saying, well, we also have to look at domestic terrorists like pro-life organizations, right? Yeah, and you know, I thought there was some short-sightedness going on the part of the Bush administration in putting some of these things in place, and it was easy for pro-lifers to say, well, you know, we can trust George Bush, so everything will be okay. But the problem, even if you believe that's true, and even if it is true, he isn't going to be president forever.
Right. The Bible says, and there became a Pharaoh that did not know Joseph.
Right, right, yeah. And now we've got the Pharaoh who don't know Joseph, right? And, you know, we said at the time, all this sounds real good if you people are defending all these things that they're doing under the Homeland Security and all that stuff. But the fact is that George Bush isn't going to be president forever. And one day, at the time, we thought it'd be Hillary Clinton. Do you want Hillary Clinton having these same sort of powers? Because that's what will happen. You'll have somebody like that. Well, actually, we got somebody much worse. We got a guy that makes Hillary Clinton look perfectly reasonable. And now we're seeing up in Wisconsin some very interesting things going on. And I want to bring in Peggy Hamill. She's joining us from Brookfield, and she's the state director of Pro-Life Wisconsin. Hello, Peggy.
Hi, Mark.
How are you doing?
Real good. Hello, Pastor Johnny and Cherie.
Hi, Peggy.
Greetings, Peggy.
University of Wisconsin is using state funds illegally, as I understand it, to train abortionists at Planned Parenthood. And you guys have been on the forefront of speaking out against this and protesting against it. And now you've been the target of a threat assessment, is that correct?
Yes, and the threat assessment involved that issue, but mostly the plans for a late-term abortion facility to be part of a Madison Surgery Center that is part of the University of Wisconsin. And Pro-Life Wisconsin's opposition to the training of the abortionists, to the late-term abortion facility that has been planned, has warranted us a little bit of interest by the Department of Homeland Security.
Now, as I understand it, the police department asked the feds to basically check you guys out. The report was shared with the Wisconsin Department of Justice, but now when you want to see reports on it, when you want to see copies of it, they say the report was destroyed.
Yes, and in fact, I'll give you a few details on that. In February 2009, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security was enlisted by the Middleton, Wisconsin Police Department, and it was determined that they inappropriately shared a Homeland Security threat assessment prepared by the Department of Homeland Security with the Department of Justice. And it was determined actually by the Department of Homeland Security, by their own Civil Rights Division later on, that they shouldn't have even enlisted Homeland Security. So it's fascinating what happened here. The threat assessment was on local pro and anti-abortion rights groups, quote unquote, but it definitely included Pro-Life Wisconsin. The threat assessment concerned free speech at a University of Wisconsin Hospitals and Clinics meeting in Middleton, in which a vote was actually taken to approve a late-term abortion facility at the University of Wisconsin Madison Surgery Center. And in January of 2010, Alliance Defense Fund, on behalf of Pro-Life Wisconsin, asked the Middleton Police Department for a copy of this report, pursuant to Wisconsin's, obviously, our open records laws that most states have. The Middleton Police Department refused to disclose the report, and further said that the Department of Justice similarly would refuse to authorize their disclosure of the report, And we tried to get the report from the Department of Justice of the state here, and they have refused to release the report. And we're finding that, then later on, just this past April, the Associated Press also tried to get a copy of the report through the open records request, and they were refused. So Pro-Life Wisconsin continues to work for the release of this report. At the same time, we're working to prevent this late-term abortion facility from opening and to stop doctors from being trained at the University of Wisconsin. But despite our efforts to get the report, there's ongoing refusal by these agencies.
And in the meantime, the illegal funding for abortion is still going on at the university, right?
The illegal funding is going on at the university. In the meantime, though, we're a little encouraged. The planned abortion facility, late-term abortion facility that was supposed to have opened a year ago, this past February, has not opened yet. So, that would be the most likely place where these doctors would move from the Planned Parenthood to be trained at this late-term abortion facility.
But Peggy,
so
let me ask you this:
intertwined.
Let me ask you this: you guys are kind of a mainstream, garden variety pro-life organization.
Well, we're a bunch of radicals.
I know. That's what I want to know. What have you done?
Pro-Life Wisconsin is actually we knowing the meaning of the word radical is from the root. Pro-Life Wisconsin is a 100%, no exceptions, no compromise organization, and we do oppose. We do take a strong position against the contraceptive mentality. We are out here. We do support pro-life work. We advocate pro-life work. We advocate prayer vigils and rallies. We had 2,000 people out there in Madison in the freezing cold a year ago, and then another 1,000 out there this last January, and ongoing prayer vigils every single day.
And this qualifies you. This qualifies you to have a threat assessment from Homeland Security.
They're domestic terrorists.
Exactly. Clearly, if we all remember, Secretary Napolitano unjustly included pro-lifers in a report on domestic terrorism.
Right.
And clearly that inclusion influenced the Madison Police Department to have the nerve to make the decision to enlist Department of Homeland Security to do this report.
And Peggy, when you say late term, how late are we talking about? 9 months?
Up to 22 weeks.
22 weeks, okay.
Up to 22 weeks they would be killing babies. 22 to 23 weeks they would be killing babies.
Well, Peggy, I know that there's nothing. I know that I sleep better down here in Denton, Texas, knowing that the Homeland Security people are keeping a close eye on you.
They're looking out for Peggy.
Man, I am so glad that they're watching you like a hawk.
Well, those of us who defend the preborn are not second-class citizens, and we refuse to let our First Amendment rights be chilled. We're not going to be intimidated, and it is very disconcerting, though, that the law enforcement agencies are refusing to release to United States citizens information that has been gathered about organizations that they belong to.
And to suggest that they're exempt from the Open Records Act and the Freedom of Information Act, it is preposterous that a public organization can say that. A tax-supported organization can claim that. Well, anyway, you keep up the fight and don't let them intimidate you.
Thanks for all you do.
Well, it is, and one real dangerous thing that we're doing. We do have a website, prolifewisconsin.org.
These people, my Lord, these people have to be stopped.
And we have a hub of resistance, another website called nouwabortions.com.
Well, we'll put those up on the screen. But Peggy, you got to be stopped, because if we let you get away with this, the next thing you're going to be doing is handing out brochures, and there's no end to it. There's no telling what she's liable to do.
Well, we're already doing that.
That's right. Well, thanks for joining us, Peggy.
Thank you, and thanks for your interest. And if people want that information, nouwabortions.com or prolifewisconsin.org. And we just applaud the work you're doing. We're great devotees of your wonderful ministry there.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us, Peggy.
God bless you.
Bye.
Thank you. I'm telling you, this is exactly what we predicted back when all this stuff was starting with the Homeland Security and the Patriot Act and all that stuff. Is that if you think this thing won't be turned around and used against pro-lifers, you're nuts. You're totally nuts. And now it is. We want to bring in a young man from, I don't know how young he is. At my age, everybody seems pretty young. But from Ventura, California, who's kind of seen another aspect of this same mentality. His name's Todd Bullis, and he's joining us now from Ventura, California. Hello, Todd.
Hello, and thank you for having me on.
Thank you for coming, sir. As I understand it now, you were at a church protesting the fact that the churches won't do anything about the abortion issue, and a police officer at that church turned a garden hose on you. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was actually a little bit worse than that. What happened, and, on the surface, the story doesn't sound all that great, but, I have done my due diligence with the church, met with the church ahead of time. They knew I was coming. They knew I was going to be there. And when we got there, a parishioner of the church walked up and asked me if I had my cameras turned on, and I said yes. And he said, well, you're going to want to catch this. And then he proceeded to spray me in the eyes with vinegar, and then he got a water hose and sprayed me down while the church congregates watched. And come to find out, he was a off-duty police officer that is also a congregate of that church. So, and the police actually showed up while he was spraying me down. And I have about a 9-minute video of it, and the police officers saw it, and it was really an amazing morning.
Now, this cop's name was John Hickson.
Correct.
And he's a member of this church. Now, my understanding is that the district attorney was contacted about this thing because that's an assault.
Yeah, it's actually a battery. He actually committed an assault is when, like, he tried to spray me, but he didn't.
Right.
When he actually sprays you in the eyes with vinegar, that's a battery. So,
okay, now, as I understand it now, the district attorney has decided they're not going to file charges because no real long-term harm was done, even though they conceded that it was a battery.
Yeah, the district attorney said that technically he committed a battery, but because no long-term damage was done, they didn't want to waste the city's money. So.
All right, now let me ask you this. Are we now to conclude that, let's say this same police officer was to go to a home where somebody had been called for domestic violence or whatever, and somebody at that home sprayed him with a garden hose and with vinegar in his face, that the district attorney wouldn't do anything about that?
Well, that's kind of how logic runs, but we all know that wouldn't be the case. If anything like that happened to somebody walking into church, we would get arrested. I mean, it is definitely one-sided. But I do have to say the Ventura Police Department, Internal Affairs, has handled this really well so far and has been very